Hey guys, welcome to the story that was almost never told, brought to you by Supay.
A little nugget.
Yes, throw a little nugget in there. So last week we kind of left off talking about adoption and, the role that it had in our lives. I was just wondering what your first feelings that you've had in terms of being adopted and what that meant to you.
Yeah, so I think growing up, I don't remember questioning it too much in the very beginning. I think really what made me question it was other people. And I know I touched on this a little bit in the last episode, and as far as somebody kind of talking to me about it and asking me questions and kind of being really negative about it. Those were kind of my initial feelings. And I know I wasn't the easiest kid. I know I had a lot of battles with being angry. I know I had a lot of, stubbornness within me. And I think, as I started to grow up and I started to realize that I did kind of have these problems and issues, trying to find the root. And I think the root always went back to being adopted. I think, I know right before this virus really hit, I was really looking into adoption therapists and kind of trying to deal with one of the main issues. And I think that's kind of abandonment. And, kind of makes or breaks relationships, right? Like friendships, relationships, like the bond you have with everybody.
For me, it's like an interesting thought knowing that you have your mom and dad here and you have your mom and your dad in Peru. But yet you're still you've said that you had this abandonment, consistent theme that's going on. How would you kind of
so I think
of that?
It really started when I was younger. And I think the reason why I was so angry and it's interesting because I was actually reading up about this, as a toddler and as, a young adult, you start questioning relationships and you start kind of testing them actually. And in this book I was reading, they were saying, especially toddlers, they start flipping out and getting extremely angry and just kind of being like, testing the waters, who's going to come back? Even if I flip out, who's coming back?
That's deep.
And I think, I think that's...
You just answered a lot of my questions right there about my own life. I'm just kidding. No, not.
I think for me, I think that's where a lot of the anger stemmed from. I mean, even as a child up to, 13, it was when a giant moment kind of erupted for me is where I had the opportunity to go back and meet, my birth family. And I think kind of leading to that moment, I just remember being so angry and testing those waters and, my mom and dad, how far can I push them and will they come back? And I think
in
that
Peru.
was
Your mom and dad in
here.
Peru.
How far can I make them so angry at me and flip out and cause this giant disruption? And
when it came to going back to Peru?
Well, I guess just when it came to anything, if we're going out and maybe my dad said the wrong thing and it just kind of triggered me and I'm just I'm not going. That's it. And except without really explaining things, I just flipped out and made it into a big thing and nobody knew why. And I think for me, it was really just testing the waters of how far can I flip out? And are you going to leave like everybody else did? Cause you were kind of low-key abandoned, as you were younger and, just testing that.
Yeah. So wait, going back to that thought that you had in terms of when you were 13 and you were going, you had the opportunity to go back, how was, your first feelings about that and anything that,
Yeah, I think I was so scared because I didn't really want to get my hopes up.
Yeah.
And I remember this was, for some reason, it kind of reminds me of right around the time email and all, and kind of came in and was really relevant. And I remember my mom had an email and I think she had printed it out and it just said found. And underneath it just was talking about where my birth parents lived. And that was a giant turning moment. Whoa, they're still alive. Whoa, we exist in this world, but we don't know each other. You completely made me and you are my parents, but I don't know you. And so that was such an interesting thought. And going to Peru and kind of having that experience was absolutely insane. And it kind of just leads me back to here. I mean, I went back a few times. And I think the most relevant time to me was when I went back and I quit my job and I was something's missing. And I had already, met my birth parents. and my sister got pregnant. And that's kind of what led me to go back. And she didn't think she was ever going to be able to have kids. So I kind of took it as a sign. And I was actually working at this place. And I remember the boss, she's the sweetest woman ever. And she said, if you stay here long enough, maybe one day you could be the director. You'd kind of follow in my shoes. And I remember thinking, that's not what I want. And when I found out my sister was pregnant, I was like, that's the perfect opportunity for me to say, I want to see what this life would have been like, what my life might have been like if I stayed in Peru. And so I took that opportunity and kind of made a split decision, bought my ticket down to Peru.
The one thing that you told me that piqued my interest too is like, for me, like I never knew my parents because they just, for whatever reason, weren't in the picture when I had the opportunity to meet them. I guess I didn't necessarily know how you felt about knowing that these people are out there, and before that you had no idea who these people were. Like I'm just so like interested in terms of like, just that thought of like, wow, they're there and I have the opportunity to meet them, my mom and my dad, and I just think that, it's such a beautiful experience that, you were able to have that, as like I said, for me, it was very different. I guess, how did you feel after you met them? Like for the first time, did you remember feeling any kind of feelings maybe about like adoption? Did it change like after you met them when it came to being adopted? Knowing both sides?
I think what really happened when I met my mom, I remember questioning her and I was so angry. And so it was weird for me, right? Because I met my mom first, and then I met my dad later on. I remember going down, there was translators that came on the trip with us, and which is another side note, like we can talk about the trip another time too, because that's super cool. But I went down, and I just wanted to be alone with my mom and the translator. And I believe there was 2 that actually came at the same time. And I was getting really confused and frustrated because I don't speak Spanish and I want to talk to her and I want it to be like, have that intimate moment, and then there's 2 people going back and forth. No, she said this. No, she said that. And I'm just like, I flipped out. I was like, there only needs to be one. Somebody else needs to leave. I mean, me telling you now is a nice way I said it. So we had
just knowing a young version of you, like
feisty and angry.
Oh yeah.
So I think I had gone down to find like a secluded area, and it was a staircase, and I had went in the staircase with my mom and the translator, and I just was really angry, and I just said, why? Why did you put me up for adoption? And I think I kind of knew before that. My mom was really trying to explain and go in detail. And what I love about my mom is she's just as emotional as me, if not more. And I know that it really hurt her. I know she was so hurt, and she was trying to explain it to me. And, what I was told before is that she didn't have enough, money to feed me, her and my dad.
Yeah.
And that basically I was living off of water and coffee. And obviously a baby can't survive off that. She was unable to produce breast milk at the time. So, while I was talking to her, she was, pointing at her arm and just saying, your dad, something happened with his arm at the time. Only for me to find out later he had some serious infection that was happening with his arm, and they really wanted to amputate it. And so while I'm born over here, my dad's also having this cycle problem, and they're poor, they have nothing. He's getting angry, he's like can't afford to see a doctor, and he's just in pain. It's just kind of like it just grew. They said it started small and this infection just grew, and he has this serious scar right now. So if in case, I ever had any kind of questions, I could just be like, Dad, show me your scar. Was Mom telling me the truth? So that moment was really intense, and then meeting my dad was another, oh my gosh, I was nervous.
How long between meeting your mom and dad?
My dad actually, he works in construction, so like building roads, building monuments and structures. So he would always go in different areas in Peru, and it was constantly traveling. So when I was down there, he was working, and I didn't know if I was going to meet him or not. But he did come. I don't remember how many days it was, but I remember just being in this little open area, and he came in, and I just like, there's a picture of it. Oh, it's emotional. I'm not gonna cry. But there's a picture of like him just holding me, and it's like, whew. Sorry, I'm like thinking about it in my head. And you know, you could like see how much like somebody loved you, and like all of those years of missing you, and like how much you missed them. So I think that was very special for me. And to have that picture is really important to me, you know, and knowing everything that I know now
About him,
about my family, about, you know, what it feels like to kind of, you know, take care of somebody as well, and the meaning behind all of these things. So kind of going back to your question is, how do I feel about adoption now? And after that, I just felt so guilty coming home. I felt so guilty that I stopped buying clothes that were over $20. So I like made a promise to myself, because I saw how they lived. I went down there, I experienced like how they lived, their house, everything. I was like, that's it. You know, I came back home with an entirely new perspective. It was like constant thrift stores, constant like, you know, finding ways to save money.
So that's where that habit started.
Completely. For me, you know, I just thought, I think I kind of grew obsessed with adoption and like comparing and contrast. You know, my parents and my family can't afford. By the way, I have siblings too. So just thinking, you know, I guess to take a step back is like they can't really afford new things for themselves, let alone their kids. And here I am in the United States, and I'm just like, hey, Dad, can I have like $50? Here you go. You know, what does that make me? And they have nothing. So I think there is an overwhelming sense of guilt within that, and which is why I always gravitated towards thrift stores. And I'm like, I'm not paying for shirts more than like $5, and I did that for a very long time. I mean, sometimes if it was like a really good occasion, you know, my mom would take me out and give me a dress or something, and it was hard for me to justify that. And how she helped me justify that was, she would say, how many times do you think you're going to wear this dress, Megan? And I would say, I don't know, it's a summer dress, maybe like 10 times. She'd say, all right, so it's like, you know, maybe the dress is, say, worst case scenario, it's $100, right?
Yeah.
Each time you wear it, it's like only $10, you know? If I wore it 10 times, right? 10, 20. Yeah.
Don't have my math hat on right now, so check back.
But yeah, so I think that's kind of how I was able to justify like higher paying things.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, everything was split in half. So I got $20 for birthday money, maybe from a relative. 10 went to savings, 10 went to maybe something I wanted. And that's kind of how I structured my life. And I'm so blessed that I was able to do that, because I look back and now I'm like, I have a good nest, you know, of, so when there is an emergency, you know, which had just actually happened recently, I'm able to give back in any way I can, you know, with my family. And I think that was, it's really cool, because I thought I had gone through, you know, living with them for 2 months, and then I came back and I had a new perspective again. And then I think kind of coming back and like being able to talk to you and everything, it's like brings me another perspective. And I recently joined a Peruvian adoptee book club, which has just blown my mind. And we're reading all about like child circulation and adoption. And our next book is going to be on the Shining Path, so the history of Peru. And my brain is just exploding with all of this knowledge. And we're having these in-depth conversations about adoption and birth parents and siblings and everything, and we're all, you know, coming from different places in the world. Yeah. And I think that's super important to note, and that's kind of where this question leads, because we were talking about adoption papers recently, and I'm like shaky talking about it, because it's just like, oh gosh, it's so intense. These feelings are so intense. Maybe now you know why I need therapy.
I think everybody can use a good dose of therapy once.
Yeah. So I think what led me to this moment is I thought that I was okay. I thought that my I had these past experiences, and I thought that everything was kind of a little bit crazy, but it's, nothing I couldn't get through until I met this group and we started talking in-depthly about adoption papers. And I knew I had them. I hadn't really looked into them. And I asked my mom in Minnesota, I was like, hey, can you take some pictures? Can you scan them? I want to see them. And so she did. And I read them. I read a little bit of them, and then I stopped. And I messaged my sister on Facebook, and I said, hey, can you please tell my mom something? Because we have been reading all of these books. I kind of saw a perspective of a mother in a third world country and how it might have been to give up her baby. So I was so rich with all of this emotion, and I was like, hey, can you tell my mom that I'm very grateful for her that she gave me up for adoption. I'm very grateful, and I love her, and she gave me a better opportunity in life, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to become something. I'm going to do this for you guys. She messaged back right away and just said your mom's super sick and she almost died. And so I'm just what? What's happening? Here I am feeling I'm kind of putting some pieces together, and then my mom's sick, and just panicking, and what does that mean, and how long? And that was a whole a process in itself. And you were there. I was just what do you do? But do anything to try to help. And so I guess that day I stopped everything, and I had ran down to the Western Union to try to give them some money and figure out what was going on with them, with my mom, because God forbid I lose her. That was intense. So then right, that happened, and then I picked up the adoption papers that night again, and I stayed up really late, and I started going through them, and I started writing everything down. And I have this notebook right here that just kind of separated, kind of a side by side of my mom, my dad. My mom was 27 when I was adopted. My dad was 29. My mom's full name, my dad's full name. So my dad's now 58. My mom's 56. During the time, my mom was a housewife. She was also a farm worker. My dad was a laborer, a worker, mostly construction. My mom wrote in my adoption papers that she was making $40 a month. And it said that my dad actually left us and that he abandoned my mom. So in this group, this adoptee group, we had talked about our adoption papers and how, and it was actually in a book, how sometimes parents have to lie when they're giving their child up for adoption because they have to be considered abandon the
so they
child.
kind of make the situation up maybe a little bit. They juice it a little bit, make it a little bit more extremer than it maybe could have been, but not to, just because, the criteria they have to meet. I understand, yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of well, what if I go in there and tell the truth and it's not bad enough? Will they take my child?
Ooh, yeah. I'd get as sobby as I possibly could,
Yeah, if God forbid you were ever in that situation. So, yeah. I started digging more. And curiosity, sometimes you tell me, curiosity kills the cat. And it does. And I think that I just had to kind of bite the bullet and just say, I want to know. I want to know. Because what happens, the truth.
About why you're, about the
papers,
the circumstances.
Everything. I want to start asking questions, more questions. I had stopped questioning. And I think that's where my downfall was. Why I was so kind of I was so uptight about everything is because I was just I stopped questioning myself, them. I haven't remembered seeing these papers. So then I started digging more. I was 3 months old at the time. My sister was 6. Her name is Doris. One really big question that I saw in these things was, it said that I had a sister that was 4 years old, that her name was Yanina. Never seen her, never heard about her. Went back down there, nobody said a thing. So
wow.
I kind of got angry. I was like, is this for real? Did my mom lie? Did you guys give her up too? Is that why you didn't tell me? Is she still alive? Where is she? Is she dead? What, my brain is exploding with all of these questions. And I think I contacted my sister. I actually asked her about all of my siblings and where they were. I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 other siblings. I only have 3 that are alive right now. And so there's 7 of us total. I kind of went through, where all they were, how did they die, all of these things. And that's I just wrote it down, and I asked like a million questions, and I think,
well, that's just a wild like thought that when you did ask them, I know that you had expressed to me that a lot of them like are no longer alive.
Yeah.
Which is just, you know, just a whole like crazy mind boggling kind of thought too. It's just like you had these siblings and you didn't even necessarily have a chance to meet them or to speak with them.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, finding that out too, I can't imagine losing a child. And I think that's why I also reached out to my mom too, and because like
are you okay? You know,
yeah,
like,
are you
I
okay?
can't even,
for
you know,
sure.
like, yeah.
And just to say like maybe, I mean, I was, you know, she lost a lot of the kids after me, but there was one before me that she lost. So I mean, maybe the pain of losing that child kind of, and then me being in my circumstances, possibly dying. Do I want to do it again, or do I want to, you know, try to give her a better life? And I think, you know, that's an interesting thing too. And I guess where I am right now with my adoption is that I'm asking questions again. I'm ready to have the tears keep flying in. I'm ready to like, no, I'm ready to be questioned. I'm ready to question them. I'm ready to explore like what all of this means, because
So I'm curious, like, you know, the answers that you did get, how has, you know, in terms of maybe, you know, knowing that you had other siblings, like how has that changed your thought process on like your adoption or maybe your family or how, you know, how has it changed yourself?
I guess knowing that I had other siblings, you know, who passed, I didn't really think of myself, I guess. I just thought of my mom. And I just thought of like how heartbreaking it is for her. And yes, it's a weird concept, right? How can I feel bad for somebody I don't know? I wasn't there when they died. So I don't mean to be like disrespectful or rude, but like I'm very not in tune with that. It's not like I was 3 years old and I was like, oh, something, part of me like is missing. Nothing like that I can remember ever happened. And
I wonder how your dad feels about that.
I actually asked, you know, I actually asked my sister how my dad feels about that. And he, I wrote it down.
Thank God for notes.
Right? When I asked my sister, he said, you know, Dad says if his kids were all alive, he would be happy and they would be young. You know, she kind of went on into the story, like I was talking about what happened when I was adopted. And my sister was a part of child circulation and was given to my grandparents for a year because they couldn't take care of her. My mom actually blames my dad completely about my adoption. My birth mom blames my dad 100% about why I was adopted. And when I was down there, I had a chance to see that a little bit, you know, her blaming him. And my sister says, you know, she holds on to that. And I can see that. And it hurts me because I'm sure he doesn't feel too good about it.
Such an interesting perspective, you know. You are like that object in a way, like, you know, that idea. For me, it's such an outlandish kind of thing because I've never met my blood. So I guess, you know, how you said you can't relate to your siblings who had passed away because you just never met them. Like, it feels like the same for me. Like, I can't relate to my mom or my dad because I never met them. So I guess it's just the thought of just seeing two people who created me and seeing one of them use me, the idea of me and what happened to me, as a means to hurt the other one. And that's just like, oh my God, like I can't. And what's even a bigger twist is that thing, you know, the idea of adoption, it was such an amazing thing because it gave you such opportunity, but yet they don't know how life altering that was. So they are just oblivious to that. They think of adoption as an idea and but you think of it as like a whole, it's your life.
Yeah.
So they'll just be like, yeah, like you're the reason why she got sent away. But that sent away is just like, yeah, do you even know what that means to a certain extent? You know, because it's like that gave you everything that you are and that you know today. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just, I mean, maybe I'm not trying to make a point. I guess it's just like a very interesting concept to really think about.
Yeah, to them it might mean, one thing. To me, it's my whole world. They might not think I think about it, but I think about it every day. And I think kind of going back to why my mom holds that over his head is I think, my dad really hurt my mom a lot. Not to speak super poorly about him, because I do love my dad. That's my dad. And he's done everything that he can, to be in my life. And he FaceTimes me a lot. And sometimes we don't know what the hell the other person's saying. But most recently he FaceTimed me while he was in the mountains. And he was kind of wrangling this, I can't remember what animal. It kind of looked like a bull. And he was just laughing, and we were talking about how beautiful the sun was and how beautiful the mountain was, and there was green, grass everywhere. And it was just like, those moments I definitely appreciate. But, and that's where he is right now, and where he was before is he had left my mom a lot. And so I think that's kind of, he was in and out of her life constantly. And so I think the one thing that genuinely hurts him is knowing that I'm alive and I'm somewhere else, and that he's not with me. He can't take care of me, as a father, not being able to take care of your kid when they're in this world, but you have no control. And so I think that's very interesting, to think about. And I think she knows that it hurts him, and she had been hurt so many other times
by him.
And so she decides, when we fight, when I'm angry, I'm going to
bring that up.
And hold it over your head. And I think that it's interesting, right? Because as an adult, I can't be like, you're wrong or you're wrong. I just can sit back and say, I can see why you might do that. I might not understand fully because I'm not you, but I can understand why you might do that. And I told my sister, can you just tell my mom to relax with that? Because that's I don't want to be like this object, chill. So she said, she doesn't really do it anymore. And she said when she did, I asked, what does my dad say back?
Yeah.
And she said, he just sits there. He takes it. And I respect that.
Yeah.
It might not have 100% been his fault. I might have just came into this world at the wrong time of their life, but I was completely blessed at that right time.
Yeah.
It might have been wrong to them at the moment, but for me, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because learning about child circulation, learning about what my life could have been, and reading these books and having an opportunity to compare and contrast, and having the opportunity to go down there and live with them for 2 months, where would I have been?
That's so interesting. I know, when you're talking about that, I guess I can't even think of a negative thing to think about you being sent away. For me personally, since I guess I can relate to you because I was adopted as well, just to think that, I guess, but this is interesting too, because our perspectives, I am so pro adoption for me in my particular situation, because I'm just so blessed with the life that I have now. And I know it could have never, ever been. I think my worst fear, you want to know my worst my worst nightmare is just waking up and feeling like this whole life I had was a dream. And it's just, let alone I don't know. It's just interesting that you can see, my life, my family's life, my family, and I'm just my life. There's you're kind of you don't question things as much. You kind of have let them be. It seems like. Yes, I guess, because also too, it's it's sad because a lot of the questions I honestly will never know, and I think the only way to keep myself sane is to just, say it's kind of maybe time to move on a little bit. But not to, if the opportunity ever presented itself, not to say I wouldn't open that door.
Right.
But I'm not gonna necessarily break my back or make it seem like it's the solution in my life to things, even though it very well could be. I just that information. So I guess that's just very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that knowing that really helps push me. To be honest, because I do There was a time where I stayed away from them. After I got back after 2 months, you know, there was actually a really rough year I had where I really didn't contact them too much. My sister would reach out to me, my brother, everybody would reach out to me, and I'd just be like, hey, what's up? How are you? I'm good. How's your health? I'm good. Is everything okay? Yep. I was an asshole, for lack of terms. I didn't want anything to do with them because I was transitioning into what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And I look back on that and I say, how dare you? You know, they care about you just as much, if not more than, you know, anybody else, along with my parents in Minnesota. So I think it's hard and I, you know, it's a constant battle, but thinking of perspectives too, where some people don't have the opportunity, you know, like you, it just makes me realize how blessed I am to have that opportunity and to keep pushing.
Explore, you know? Yeah, definitely.
And dig. And I just, like I said, as many, and you know I love digging. I think that's just a part of me is trying to understand and make sense of everything. And I think going back to your main question of where I feel right now, as I feel very vulnerable. I feel very scared. You know, I do feel scared. Like there's so many unknowns. I'm in the air. I'm on the ground. I'm in the air. I'm on the ground. I feel very uneasy sometimes about it.
Okay. Last question I'd like to ask. What do you hope to find with like what's your biggest question that you have still yet to be answered that you can say?
I want to say that I don't think I'll ever find it. I'm in the process of searching for culture. I'm in the process of searching for history. You know, being raised in the United States, you have these history classes, whether or not they're, you know, biased or not. You learn about your history, and now I'm at a point in my life where I can't talk about Peru as much as I want to. I can't talk about the culture, the movements that they went through, the political, you know, structure. I can't really talk too much about that. And I think for me, it's kind of like, are you Peruvian? Are you American? Are you, what are you?
Which is probably another topic.
For sure.
For another episode.
Yeah.
Future episode, yeah.
And I think I'm just kind of searching along the lines of where do I fit in all of this? And I'm just constantly trying to learn. And right now I'm just in the process of reading and learning and having these conversations with you, with other adoptees, and just kind of listening to them, listening to you, kind of figuring out what you guys think and, you know, expressing how I think and kind of, once again, trying to make sense of it. And I think going back to what I want to find out is I want to feel and I want to find out, you know, what it's going to take to make me feel, I don't know, maybe just like Peruvian, to be able to say like, hey, I'm Peruvian, without the negative talk in my head being like, but are you? But are you? You know,
you want that kind of symbolic dual citizenship in a way.
I want to be able to earn it. I want to be able to, like I said, have
earn your stripes.
Yeah, have those conversations. I want to learn to speak fluent Spanish and be like, damn right, I'm Peruvian. And I was raised in America, and I'm proud of both. And right now, I feel like I'm American, you know, which is fine, but I can't relate to Peruvian as, you know, being Peruvian as much. And that's, I guess, haven't thought about that question super deep, but that's kind of what I'm searching for.
Well, I'll definitely continue more on that topic. And, you know, I'm really, really happy that, you know, you're able to share that. And, you know, I definitely learned a lot and just really interesting perspectives in terms of, you know, your life and what your life could have been and what your life is now, and doing like a reversal, kind of like doing some history, and only to come full circle, only to have the circle still keep going, because, you know, your life isn't finished yet. There's still a lot to be, you know, unraveled. You know, I think we'll end that here. And
let me go dry my tears. Join us next time.